Hello again, and welcome back to year 4 of the Religious Education Initiative. This is week 16. We're coming up on Christmas. So, last time we finished reading the short book of Ruth, and we saw the prequel to the story of King David. We will continue with the story of King David in the new year, but for these final weeks, as we prepare to celebrate the Lord's birth and the salvation that comes to us all, we will fast forward several hundred years to the end of King David's kingdom in Jerusalem at the hands of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon. When this king took the city, he took captive certain young men of the city, among whom was Daniel. This week we will read the prelude of Daniel's time in Babylon, and next week, as we are celebrating Christmas, we will read the vision of the king that Daniel interpreted. So, this is Daniel chapter 1. In the 3rd year of the reign of King Jehoiakim of Judah, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon came to Jerusalem and besieged it. The Lord let King Jehoiakim of Judah fall into his power, as well as some of the vessels of the house of God. These he brought to the land of Shinar, and placed the vessels in the treasury of his gods. Then the king commanded his palace master Ashpenaz to bring some of the Israelites of the royal family and of the nobility, young men without physical defect, and handsome, versed in every branch of wisdom, endowed with knowledge and insight, and competent to serve in the king's palace. They were to be taught the literature and language of the Chaldeans. The king assigned them a daily portion of the royal rations of food and wine. They were to be educated for 3 years, so that at the end of that time they could be stationed in the king's court. Among them were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah from the tribe of Judah. The palace master gave them other names. Daniel he called Belteshazzar, Hananiah he called Shadrach, Mishael he called Meshach, and Azariah he called Abednego. But Daniel resolved that he would not defile himself with the royal rations of food and wine. So he asked the palace master to allow him not to defile himself. Now God allowed Daniel to receive favor and compassion from the palace master. The palace master said to Daniel, "I am afraid of my lord the king. He has appointed your food and your drink. If he should see you in poorer condition than the other young men of your own age, you would endanger my head with the king." Then Daniel asked the guard whom the palace master had appointed over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, "Please test your servants for 10 days. Let us be given vegetables to eat and water to drink. You can then compare our appearance with the appearance of the young men who eat the royal rations, and deal with your servants according to what you observe." So he agreed to this proposal and tested them for 10 days. At the end of 10 days it was observed that they appeared better and fatter than all the young men who had been eating the royal rations. So the guard continued to withdraw their royal rations and the wine they were to drink, and gave them vegetables. To these 4 young men God gave knowledge and skill in every aspect of literature and wisdom. Daniel also had insight into all visions and dreams. At the end of the time that the king had set for them to be brought in, the palace master brought them into the presence of Nebuchadnezzar. And the king spoke with them, and among them all no one was found to compare with Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Therefore they were stationed in the king's court. In every matter of wisdom and understanding concerning which the king inquired of them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and enchanters in his whole kingdom. And Daniel continued there until the 1st year of King Cyrus. In the 2nd year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed such dreams that his spirit was troubled, and his sleep left him. So the king commanded that the magicians, the enchanters, the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans be summoned to tell the king his dreams. When they came in and stood before the king, he said to them, "I have had such a dream that my spirit is troubled by the desire to understand it." The Chaldeans said to the king in Aramaic, "O king, live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we will reveal the interpretation." The king answered the Chaldeans, "This is a public decree. If you do not tell me both the dream and its interpretation, you shall be torn limb from limb, and your houses shall be laid in ruins. But if you do tell me the dream and its interpretation, you shall receive from me gifts and rewards and great honor. Therefore, tell me the dream and its interpretation." They answered a second time, "Let the king first tell his servants the dream, then we can give its interpretation." The king answered, "I know with certainty that you are trying to gain time, because you see I have firmly decreed, if you do not tell me the dream, there is but one verdict for you. You have agreed to speak lying and misleading words to me until things take a turn. Therefore tell me the dream, and I shall know that you can give me its interpretation." The Chaldeans answered the king, "There is no one on earth who can reveal what the king demands. In fact, no king, however great and powerful, has ever asked such a thing of any magician or enchanter or Chaldean. The thing that the king is asking is too difficult, and no one can reveal it to the king except the gods, whose dwelling is not with mortals." Because of this, the king flew into a violent rage and commanded that all the wise men of Babylon be destroyed. The decree was issued, and the wise men were about to be executed, and they looked for Daniel and his companions to execute them. Then Daniel responded with prudence and discretion to Arioch, the king's chief executioner, who had gone out to execute the wise men of Babylon. He asked Arioch, the royal official, "Why is the decree of the king so urgent?" Arioch then explained the matter to Daniel. So Daniel went in and requested that the king give him time, and he would tell the king the interpretation. So there are two pieces here. The first is the story of how Daniel and his friends arrive in Babylon and gain favor, and then the second is the prelude to Daniel's giving and interpretation of the king's dream. So we'll talk about the dream next time. For now, I want to emphasize the point that Daniel and his friends are descendants of the noble houses of Judah, which means they're descended from King David. And yet, they have been taken hostage, taken captive by a foreign power, because the power of David's house has been broken because of the faithlessness of the kings and the priests and the leaders of the kingdom of Judah. And this is all that remains. The kingdom of Israel had been lost 100 years and more before, and that was the northern 10 tribes. All that remains are these two southern tribes of Judah and Benjamin, maybe with a little bit of the tribe of Simeon, and the Levites who remain close to the temple of God. All of these are now being led away in captivity, and David's promise, David's line, seems to have come to its end, even though God promised that David's line would never see an end. So, we have a problem that we're facing. In the face of that problem, in a foreign land, without any power, as effectively as slaves, although slaves who are being prepared and trained for a high position, Daniel has nothing going for him. And yet, he and his friends turn in faithfulness to God and refuse to eat the food that is dedicated to idols, refuse to take part in the evils of Babylon. And God protects them, and God gives them favor, and God sustains them even though all they're eating are vegetables. They don't eat the meat because all the meat has been dedicated to idols, and therefore they become famous and renowned and respected and gain a high position. High enough, in fact, that they are under the ban that the king gives when he commands all the wise men of Babylon are to be killed, because those that went in to interpret the king's dream weren't able to tell him what he had dreamed and the interpretation. So in this we see both God's judgment on the faithless kings of Judah, the faithless descendants of David, and we see God's faithfulness to David's descendants, even to Daniel and his friends. This is not a one-time thing. We'll see God continue to be faithful to them in Babylon, not just this year, but next year when we read the story of the fiery furnace. I don't think we've read that yet. But for now, as we are completing our fast and preparing to feast with the coming of the Lord, it is encouraging, I think, to see Daniel and his friends keeping a fast of sorts, abstaining from the rich things of this world, entrusting themselves to the Lord and holding fast to Him, putting all their hope and their joy in His promises. So, that's it for now. God bless you all. We'll see you in a couple days for day 2.